these overwhelming experiences happen and the self fractures, but it's actually the fractured self that remembers the whole self as well. So I think it's being able to take radical responsibility for who you are, because you're all of it. I am all of it. When I'm snapping or I'm like, I just go in like, who's here? Who are you? What age are you? What do you need? When she's very young and she's very frightened or she's very angry, and I just try and soften it.
Welcome on the Joyful Mate podcast. How are you, Alysia James?
Anthony, I'm so well. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so delighted to have you on the show because we're touching on this subject that is quite deep in nature, but very relevant to all of us, energetic intelligence. But before we get into the subject matter, I'd love you to share with the listeners and viewers as to how you've arrived at what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Oh, God, where do I start? All right. So pre-2020, I was what you call a classic high performer. I wouldn't say I was an overachiever by any means, but just a high performer, always on, always stretching myself. And then 2020 came and changed the landscape of my business because of the business shut down. So that was like a real turning point for me. And for the first time ever, I had these feelings inside me that I couldn't articulate. I didn't have any words for them. Now I know it was complete terror and fear. I guess I, at the time, thought it was a bit of anxiety, but even then I was quite disconnected rather from what the literacy was in my body and my emotions. And then fast forward a few years after a really big breakdown, like mental health crisis low point, I started to heal. And as it would way of the world, it was my body that broke down first, and I was not able to move my neck. I couldn't turn my head. I was in a lot of pain. And one thing led to another, and sort of healing that, I connected to, quite frankly, energy that was trapped in here that had a story to tell. There was a lot of intelligence, and I was able to connect with events, experiences that had happened in my childhood. But the intelligence wasn't so much what happened to me. The intelligence, which I found fascinating, was the meaning that I made, the meaning making that I put on those experiences that then became my neurology and informed my neurobiology, which informed my body. It was the code really of how my body was operating. And then once I discovered that, I just thought, I was blown away. And I thought, why aren't we learning this at school? Well, this is phenomenal. Why are we all learning trigonometry? This is nuts. So then I was just, on this mission to help get it out there and just help people understand, what's going on for them, like why they feel the way they do, why they behave the way they do. There's so much more to it that's just within our bodies, it's more than just emotion. Well, emotion is energy in motion. So that's where I get that sort of, word of energy. But it's the wisdom in our body. It's the intelligence within our energy that I think the more we can connect with, the more we know ourselves. And then we come into that beautiful sense of wholeness, because we know what part of our body's been activated, what part of our neurobiology's on fire.
In terms of that real low point or that dark moment, what was the light for you that really enabled you to step forward during that dark moment, and that, all that, so much happening, and the terror, fear, and everything you're feeling? What was the light for you?
There wasn't much. I didn't have the words. I had an overwhelming sense of helplessness, hopelessness, powerlessness. And I remember one day after a really low point that I got through, it took me 45 minutes to get out of bed, and I walked down to the beach, and I just told myself, just get to the beach, just get to the water. And I think I broke down on the beach, and I think I just sort of looked up to the heavens. I don't know. I looked up and I was like, just give me something, give me something. And then as it turned out, I think an hour later, someone rang me. It was a work context. And I just think that light became that connection with a person, just someone who wanted my opinion on something, even though it was work and it was really transactional. I think that was it. But honestly, Anthony, I think that's the hardest part, because for me, the dark darkness was so consuming, all consuming, that even though there's little pockets of light trying to sort of break through, it was part of me was almost like, I don't even want to see the light. So I think there was just a little bit of a, what I call a pilot light innate within me that just didn't want to give up, even though so much of the other parts of me did. It did want to give up. It was, for me, there was a belief that there was relief in the darkness. So that was tricky to work through.
Relief in the darkness. So really, that just resonated with me then. Like, because in a sense, you're accepting where you're at, you're acknowledging it. And with that acceptance enables you to, I guess, put more fuel behind that pilot light that you mentioned, like to just reinvigorate that a little bit more. And you said that reinvigoration came through just a sense of connection, a sense of belonging, a sense of hope in a way that, I am of value to someone. I am worthy, and it's just lifted that pilot light into, starting to shine a little bit brighter. So that relief in the darkness, let's explore that a little bit more, because I think often people just want it to go away, and it doesn't. And I think you embraced it in a sense.
Yeah, maybe. I quite like that I embraced it. Look, look, it's all so personal, and, I hope this is okay for the listeners. But for me, the relief in the darkness came following my experiences that I had as a very little girl. And so I had experiences that forced a complete shutdown, just total dissociation, complete shutdown. And it was in that shutdown where there's something must have still been on, because in that complete darkness, in that complete shutdown, there was relief. I couldn't feel anything anymore. And so that over time became a belief, and I was able to work with my energetic intelligence to find the belief. And I have actually got a belief that it was along the lines of, I can live when I die. So that was really big to connect to that, and that relief is in death. And so what I had to do was work really hard to go past that. And so it was almost like if I take all of that energetic intelligence, which was mushed up into this big like ball of mess, and stripped it out and made it linear. It was almost like the timeline, if you like, for me was like, push past death. What's death? What's the purpose of death? How does that help you? And it's like, oh my God, I can breathe. Then I can live. And so then I just kept pushing past that, and then what, and then what, and then what. So actually I could then work backwards from not death, but I could work backwards from the hope and the joy and the purpose. And I think that circles back to, that day at the beach where I was just like, oh my God, give me something. And what I got from that phone call was a sense of purpose, because someone was asking for some advice, and it gave me something to do that day. It was like, okay, so there's a bit of purpose. So now working backwards from a sense of purpose, that's where I get my light.
Yeah, well, because I see a lot of life coming out of people living with purpose. So you look at those that are living well into their, later stages of life, but they've still got so much energy, and it's all linked to that purpose. They're living a purposeful life. And often I think this whole longevity market is fueled by people hanging on to hope, well, having belief that there is purpose in their life, but they haven't found it yet. So they want to live longer to find it, right? So I think once you find that purpose, then you're not as attached to this longevity or this.
I think so.
Yeah. So please let's get into that a bit more in terms of this purpose, because it's really that day on the beach, you got a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, you've continued to fuel that and ignite. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. The trouble was, initially, I was thinking about purpose cognitively, and I tied purpose into a sense of achievement, and I have to do something. So it was like that, finding my purpose, which wasn't healthy for me. And I actually believe that purpose is something that we're born with. It's innate within us. And so for me, purpose is joy. that's my purpose. It's just to have a sense of joy. And I think you said it before, connection and that sense of belonging and love. That is it. So I'm working backwards from how I want to feel every day as a purpose, not what do I want to achieve? What do I want to do? That tripped me up. And when I was trying to find my purpose from a sense of achievement, that was like, old neurology, right? Putting my sense of self in an external that's not mine to control, because my sort of validation or achievement is determined on a set of metrics that's external to me. So I've brought all of my sense of purpose back into what I can control, what I can own, and what's really innate within me. And, I'm just the sense of connecting with people and a sense of joy and light. That's it. It's a pretty simple recipe, Anthony. That's just what I try and, get every day.
And how do you go about fostering that? Like, so obviously you're very aware of it now and the importance of it, and you live, every day by that. But how do you actually create, your day around it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really hard, actually, because, well, as you know, I work for myself by myself. So sometimes, not having a big team is quite hard. So I just am really grateful that I live in Sydney and it's beautiful. And so I can get those feelings just being outside, being really intentional with where I work, my environment. So I'm working from home today. So I knew I'd get more joy than being in the office. Yeah, so just being aware of what's at my fingertips, what's at my disposal, nature, the beach, just that sense of space. So sometimes, I'll drive an hour and a half to get out of the hustle and bustle, just to be in nature, to connect with that sense of joy and light. Otherwise, I'm really intentional with who I spend my time with. I'm quite discerning. I've learned now I'm very good at saying no, and things that don't align to my sense of purpose, then I don't engage, or I'm very limited around how much time I spend there. So yeah, it's just being quite selective of where I put my energy. And it's something that as part of my program, it's very clear to me what my energetic shape is. I have an energetic shape, and I make sure I protect that. I make sure that there's edges to that. So it helps.
Yeah, and I really want to get into that, because part of the work you do is help people that are really lost, don't know who they are. And that's around just doing that people pleasing and, being everyone to everyone else and losing yourself in that process. So really keen on how you've gone about, like, as much as people hear about, you've got to create boundaries and,
Mm-hmm.
and protect your mental health and all that sort of stuff. It's not easy to do, right? We live in a society where we want people, it's sort of an expectation there, right? So but yeah, so how did you go about building that?
Yeah, well, I'm just so curious. So when I love reading things, and I've been studying a lot for the last close to 5 years now. And I came up, when I didn't come up, I discovered this concept called tensegrity, but applied for humans, neurobiotensegrity. And I just was blown away by that concept. And it's essentially saying that every structure has tension. It there's always tension. And I just thought that was amazing. And I thought about the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So that really, like, as a metaphor, is totally out of alignment, right? Like, it's not straight, it's off the side, but it holds its tension. Well, it holds its structure because of the tension. And then I thought about that in the concept of humans, with layered on top of that, the mind, body, and spirit. So for me, I visualize the mind, body, and spirit like three circles. And when my tension, my whole system was out of alignment, there was just total disconnection between the three. So if you imagine the three circles, a mind, body, and a spirit, in the middle, there is no shape. There's nothing. There's no sort of container for it. And I lived in my mind. I lived in my head. My body, I couldn't feel anything. My spirit was offline. I didn't even sort of connect to that idea. And then through all the work that I've done, I've realized that for me, that sense of coherence and that sense of alignment is actually the system tension softening and allowing the mind and the body and the spirit to all merge together. And if you picture, in your mind, a Venn diagram where the three circles intersect, that's the shape. that's my essence, that's my shape, that's my energetic shape. So for me, I can see it, it's very clear, and I also know what it feels like. And I think that's the most important thing for me. It's just not a cognitive thing. I can somatically feel it, I can embody it, I know what it feels like. And it's from that place, then I can actually go, okay, well, from this place, what feels important to me? What feels important to me? And then from that place, I can work out what my values are based on that sense of feeling. And then from that place, I work out what my boundaries are, because boundaries for the sake of boundaries, I don't think help. Well, they didn't help me until I really learned the purpose of a boundary. You know, I'd heard it, like you said, I'd heard about put your boundary in, say no, but whatever. But, you know, it needed to be so much deeper. I really needed to understand what it was all about. So,
And
yeah, so.
that feeling is connected with a meaning, like it's so, and that's, I guess, associated with purpose. And so, like, I'm just thinking, how can people best understand that it feels the right thing to do? Because I think too often we jump back into our thinking brain and think, based on what this person told me, I should do this, and you get what I mean. Like, and then we get stuck in it. But you're very much associated with a feeling, which is associated with who you are, your
Mhm,
authentic self. So,
mhm, mhm.
how do you take that next step to really connect with that feeling and say that's the right step? Like, it's a hard
Yeah.
question to answer, I know, but
No, no,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think I follow. I think I
okay, yeah,
follow. What I picked up when you initially asked the question is you had the word think and feel in the same sentence. Like, how do people think? It was something like that. And I thought, well, that's you can't do that. That's the thing. It's what you were alluding to. You can't think about how am I going to, you know, feel that. It's not, doesn't work like that. The way I help people is I teach them how to access the wisdom of their body and how to go into their body. And it's really simple. It's just in our modern world, we're so fast. We don't pick up the little nuances that our body gives us. Our body's sending us little messages all the time. And then when we do, where it's often a symptom, by then it's a symptom and we're just trying to manage it. We're just trying to silence it. We're just going to take that Nurofen, take that Panadol, go and see the doctor, silence it. But actually there's so much wisdom in that. So to answer your question, it's the thinking part is just an awareness of how do I go into my body? And it's not something that you can do in a beta brain, in a thinking brainwave. It's actually in an alpha state. So it does require that awareness and that time and that breath to drop and to understand a sensation. And once people are practiced in it, it's become so obvious. You know, I was working with a client who was seeing me for migraines and for years, and so many medications, nothing was working. And, you know, I asked him to just, you know, it took him through it, get into a sort of an alpha state, describe the sensation of the migraine, like really go in and describe it. And he was throwing words around like, you know, it's really irritating and it's hot. And I asked him, you know, maybe is there a color? And he's like, yes, red. And anyway, we came out of that little journey and into the beta brain. And I was like, well, here are all your answers. Just everything that you've said. Can you connect to an emotion? And he was so disconnected. He was like, no. And I was like, well, are you comfortable if I, you know, throw some emotions at you just to see what lands? And I was like, anger? And he said, well, it can't be anger because I never get angry. And I was like, well, that's something to explore, isn't it? Because everyone should have every emotion and, you know, it's healthy. So anyway, we did a lot of work around that and it was amazing. And, you know, his migraines, you know, cleared up. So I guess the point is that, you know, it sounds crazy to think that a headache or a migraine is the body's way of going, I've got something to share. You need to know about this. And it was fascinating because once we connected to the emotion and then we could use the energetic intelligence to go, oh, and this was the experience and this is what got shut down as a little child. This is what didn't get expressed through my voice, and all that energy had to go somewhere because energy can't be created nor destroyed, right? So the energy goes up here and just got stuck in there. So, I mean, I hear it and I know that it potentially sounds a little on the woohoo side, but it's just actually energetic principles. And, you know, the power of it is just to be able to catch the movement of that frequency and, you know, that vibration, that energy pattern. What is it? What's it saying? What's it telling me? There's so much wisdom in it. And then using that to get a sense of what's going on. And from that understanding, that's when the feeling comes as a result. It's almost like there's a relief and going, on a way, right? Okay, cool. So that's the emotion, that's the belief. Like that for a lot of my clients, and certainly for me, it's that relief just through understanding. I can see what's going on. There's a little terrified girl in me right now that's believing this, even though I'm over 50 and I'm not in any danger. Do you know? But once there's that connection to what's going on in my neurology and my neurobiology, for me, that awareness cognitively allows that somatic softening, and it's that softening in my body that allows the tension I was talking about before in the system to sort of move, to soften, to come into alignment. It's almost like before that, the body operates with the head and the body like magnets that repel each other, and they're just like, can't get in, but that softening flips it and it allows that, that integration. So there's that beautiful softening in the body with that.
I love that softening term because, too often, and this is part of that resilience bandwagon where people just think you just got to bunker down and toughen through it. And that's become problematic in the sense that people are burning out because they just think they've got to endure it, as opposed to what you're saying is that, we need to have an awareness, create some level of acceptance and softening, and in order to, I guess, find solutions and resourceful ways to get out of what we're going through. I'm just thinking back to what you shared around that beta brain, beta very thinking, high level brain waves, and we need to slow those brain waves down to the alpha in order to connect with the feeling. Now, in today's society, we've got so much stimulus coming in from everywhere, right? So the media is constantly hitting us, 24/7. We've got social media. It's endless, pings here and so much stimulus and, obviously igniting those beta waves. How do the listeners and viewers get into that alpha state or more alpha-like state, calming, slowing those brain waves down?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's actually, it's quite big to answer because I couldn't do it before all of this work. I just couldn't do it. And it wasn't because it was so much coming at me. It was because where my nervous system was stuck. And because where I was stuck in what I call unfinished biology, I didn't feel in my body safe enough to soften. I was still sort of in a dorsal vagal sort of freeze, immobilized towards shutdown state, or I was in a stuck activated state with the sympathetic nervous system. And so even though I had the awareness that I should rest, my body couldn't. My body didn't trust. So that's the first thing. So people have got to be able to complete those survival responses to get into different nervous system state in the ventral vagal and then be able to rest. So that's the first step. There's got to be a biological ability to do that. And then the second thing is just having discernment. It comes down to just going, what am I protecting here? What's the purpose of all this? What's this all about? And just being really discerning. And I think simple practices to know what nourishes you. Like for me, I know what I need to come back into that sort of alignment and that connection. I know what nourishes me. And I just have to be really discerning. And it becomes a practice that every single day I do my, I do my practice and I know what my body needs. Every day's different. And then I honor that. My body really needed to run today. So I took it for a run, and it's not for a health thing in terms of fitness. It's because my body needs to move. There's energy that my body really needs to just move through. So I listen to it. And then it's just sitting down and thinking, okay, what else do I need? I need some nurturing today. So I'm going to drink this tea. I'm going to have a rug on my lap. And it doesn't necessarily mean, certainly not for me, that I don't respond to all the pings, although I am discerning and I turn notifications off and things like that. And I don't do news, but it just allows me to, whilst it is all pinging and emails coming and phone ringing and all the rest of it, I can respond to that from a place of calm and be really discerning because I've practiced, moving my body into that nervous system state, that ventral vagal. However, as I said at the start of answering this question, you can't do that unless your body is willing to go there. And it took a long time for my body to be willing to even sit even just sit on the couch in the middle of the day. That was just like, what? Years ago. There was no way. There was no way.
So was the path, like I'm just thinking of this lady who's on the beach, feeling so broken, doesn't know really who she is and what she's living for. And then it's that reconnection with self. So it's that, you said that initial connection sort of sparks something, but then all the pieces are starting to come back together for you over time. So there's certainly a journey in this process. How did, like, you know, then obviously there was a process in terms of calming that nervous system, saying you're safe, you're safe, and you can really feel your body and go into it. And how did you then come out of that and realize this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me, this isn't me, this isn't me? What was that sort of how did that take shape?
I think just for me, it's all me. It's all of it is me. So it's not saying, oh, that's not me. It's actually going, all of it is me. Who is it? That's all. Who is it? And I think I had a period of time where I was like, when I was so lost, I just didn't understand my behaviors. I could look at my behaviors and go, that doesn't even make sense. But when I realized who was at the driving seat, so to speak, which wounded inner child had taken over, that's when I could say, oh my goodness, what does she need in this moment? What does she need? So even shifting the mindset from, oh, that isn't me, that's not, to, oh my God, it's all me. I see you, and I'm going to hold you, and I'm going to give you what you didn't receive when you were little. Again, that softens. That's a softening, because I'm not in internal battle with myself. These overwhelming experiences happen and the self fractures, but it's actually the fractured self that remembers the whole self as well. So I think it's being able to take radical responsibility for who you are, because you're all of it. Well, I am all of it. When I'm snapping, or where I'm like, I just go in like, who's here? Who are you? What age are you? What do you need? And she's very young and she's very frightened, or she's very angry, and I just try and soften, and it's hard work. And when I'm tired, it does not work. So I've got to be really mindful of like, God, don't think I'll have that second drink, or, I think I better get to bed, because it takes a lot of work. I think the ingredients for it is, I just take radical responsibility for who I am and how I feel and how I behave. And I'm really curious. To go, who is at the wheel? Because I think for so long I lived in my head and I just controlled everything. And then when I wasn't able to control my environment because it changed, it was also like my head moved to the side and then my body came up. And what was in my body was very young. It was a very young body. It was just this like very scared 5-year-old running around, like causing damage pretty much.
I loved how you framed it as taking radical responsibility, because if you look at the world we live in today, it is blaming everyone else and very little of taking self-accountability or self-ownership. And one of the things that has really helped you is to own everything about you, everything you've done in the past. It's all part of me. I'm going to take responsibility for it. I'm going to see the blessings in what was at the time terrifying and look for the meaning, as opposed to disassociating from it, further removing yourself and becoming so distant that you're fractured. Like it's incredible. This, it's a tough path you've taken. It really is. It's not as much as I say it's tough, if you look at the other side of not doing what you're doing, that can end up not so good too. Like it's really.
Yeah, for me, it became the only path. It just, and I feel like I've got an innate driver for me, because I remember going into the experience and connecting with it. And I was being led, of course. I wasn't just doing it by myself, at least not at that time. And I was bawling my eyes out. And, my healer, mentor, coach, this man, James Pask, is just so special to me. I think he thought that I was crying for me. And I went, I'm not crying for me. I'm not crying for me. And I think he was like, what? And I was like, no, no, no. I said, I am so lucky. Like, I am so lucky that I've got the time and and I can afford these sessions to understand. I'm crying for all the people who can't. I'm crying for all the people who haven't connected to their energetic intelligence, that are still stuck, that's who I'm crying for. And so I just feel like that was again part of my pilot light, that I just knew, I've got to put the spreadsheets away. I can't work in that sort of world anymore. And I just feel like a very big pull to help others, because it's almost like something in me just feels it's not right. There's an injust somewhere for me, that this isn't a little bit more common language or a practice that's taught. I just feel Indigenous cultures knew. They knew, and we've really deviated from that sense of connection to who we are, to energy, to earth. And I think it's time we bring it back, because you're right. What you said about, the world we live in today, it makes me cry. I have to, I can't bear it.
And it's ignited this, this really made that pilot flame shining bright, right? You're out there actively filling that void, that, you're wanting to help others through their pain, their struggles, and you're doing that today. It's beautiful. It's so nice to see what's come out of what you've been through.
Mm. Yes, it is. I wouldn't change it for the world, actually. I'm really grateful for all of it, all of it. It's
And
been pretty cool.
That's one thing I've picked up throughout the conversation is gratitude. Gratitude all the way through has been one of the key defining principles or things that you've really become strongly associated with or connected with, is this sense of gratitude.
Yeah, very much, very much. It's just, again, I don't know, just the ability to understand myself. That's just, I mean, what a gift. That's just awesome, isn't it? For me, it is.
And it's beautiful. And now you help others find that within themselves. So how can the listeners, viewers, I'm sure this is the perfect moment to share with them as to how you can help them if they're feeling very fractured, lost. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's probably no surprises, but my brand is called Purpose Lived Co. So I have a website, purposelivedco.com, and Instagram the same. And it's just very easy to Google. Purpose Lived Co. Yes, I'd love to help as many people as I can.
Nice and simple. Very, very nice. And I really heard a shift in your voice. It was sort of so excited to, wanting to help and connect with others. So there's no doubt you're living a very authentic life, very authentic career now that's very aligned to who you are, and very much those three circles, very interconnected and constantly talking to one another and sharing feedback.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Try and live by that every day. Some days are better than others,
but you're human. And then that's the beautiful thing is you're sharing this human side of you, saying that I'm still on my journey, like we all are. Everything's unfinished.
Totally. I think for a time I thought that I could run through the finish line. It's like, you are healed. And it'll be like, yay. But it doesn't quite work like that. So again, it's just a daily practice. It's a non-negotiable, and it's it's pretty simple. It's pretty cool.
And that's one thing you realize, that there is no finish line, right? It's, as you said, energy cannot be created or destroyed, but only transformed from one form to another. So it's just a continuous flow. It's like
totally. Yep.
Yeah, it's only that we actually define endpoints. Like we say this, it's a label, it's but some attachment to something. But in actual fact, it's constantly transforming. So I think this is where people get lost with this whole concept around perfectionism, because it can't. It doesn't. Nothing stops. It's constantly that target will change. Like there'll be a new target.
Yes, that's so true. Chasing the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, Alysia James, I really appreciate you coming on the Joyful Mate podcast and sharing your story. And I really appreciate you being so open, raw, honest, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. I've learned a lot, so thank you.
You're so welcome, Anthony. Thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. And to the listeners, please share this with others that you believe that could really benefit from Alysia's wisdoms, her journey, and her ability to find that light. Everyone has that ability to ignite that or reignite that pilot light and get it shining bright. So the hope is there. Please share it with others that could also need or in need of this, and really appreciate you listening in and tuning in to Joyful Mate each week. Thank you.